All right, let's jump into the first matchup. We got the Jags going to KC to take on the Chiefs. 8.5 is the line in favor of the Chiefs. Total way up at 53. What do you like at the captain spot, Sean?
So I was considering either Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce here, and I'm going to go with Travis Kelce. This is a spot where I think the Chiefs are just going to be throwing the ball with ease. The Jaguars defense is certainly a pass funnel one. And last time they played, Mahomes was able to pick apart the Jags defense over the middle, threw for 334 yards. But this is a spot, it's a playoff, so I can see him leaning on Kelce even more here. The Jags rank 32nd in DVOA against tight ends. They allowed a big gain to Gerald Everett last week, who went off for 6 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. Even teams trying to slow down Kelce, they'll double team him. It doesn't matter. He goes off, no matter what. So if there's any team that certainly can't stop him, it's the Jaguars. And Kelce's ran a route on 82% of Mahomes dropbacks since week 9. So now that we're in the playoffs, that could go up closer to 90%. He's going to play as much as possible here since it's the playoffs. So I think that raises his ceiling even more. So that's why I like using him in the captain slot for this game.
Yeah, Kelce, he has the best matchup, I think, here, at least on paper, 32nd in DVOA. Against tight ends are the Jaguars. So certainly don't hate it. I think he's a threat for multiple touchdowns in this game. I'm going with Mahomes here. I actually have him projected for almost 7 more fantasy points than Trevor Lawrence. So kind of an ideal spot. And I actually have Mahomes almost 5 ahead of Kelce. So I'm really high on Mahomes in this spot. I think he's, like you said, I think the Chiefs will be able to throw the ball here against this Jags D that ranks 17 spots worse in DVOA against the pass than versus the run. They're a bottom 5 pass D. So give me some Mahomes. I think he spreads it. I think he gets it to Kelce. I also like Juju in this spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think Juju has a really good matchup against this zone heavy Jags D with that has a weak slot corner in Herndon. So quite a few ways you could go here, but going with Patty here. And Mahomes also, I looked it up, tends to scramble about 2% more per drop back than he does in the regular season when he's in the postseason. And it's like that kind of adds up to because scrambles usually go for 7-8 yards on average. That can add up to, an additional like half a point or something. So don't sleep on that either. But a lot of reasons to like Mahomes here.
That's when I was going to go with Mahomes, but I pivoted. But that's the one thing I was going to mention. It always seems like when we get to the playoffs, we're projecting him, maybe not this week, but maybe next week, we're going to be projecting him for over 30 rushing yards. If you remember that Super Bowl game, he was at like 35.5 because that's how much more he scrambles. Just hopefully when he kneels down, it's, not minus 10 yards a pop this time. But I was going to say, usually in the playoffs, he really, just unleashes himself when it comes to scrambling. So just massive upside here.
Yeah. And that is one of the reasons why I think he has a little extra added value in that captain spot, because he could get a rushing touchdown, and that's leverage on everyone now.
Do you have him for more points than Josh Allen?
Let's see. Yeah, he's my QB1 this week. My QB1 this week. About a half a point more. About a half a point.
Yeah, and I don't think that happened too often in the regular season, if ever. It's typically Josh Allen number 1. So that just goes to show what a great matchup this is for Mahomes this week.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes had his interception issues this year, but Josh Allen's really having some issues this year. So it's kind of building on each other to where Allen's rushing is not necessarily canceling out Mahomes' proficiency throwing the football here. All right, who else do you like in this game? Dart throws, value plays. Just who else are you rostering on this slate?
Yeah, so on the Jaguar side, I like Marvin Jones, and he's obviously the forgotten guy in this passing attack behind Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram. But he saw a pretty big jump in usage last week. He ran around on 69% of Lawrence's dropbacks since week 12, but last week it was all the way up to 90%. They use just way more 11 personnel, and I could see them sticking with that against the Chiefs. They're going to have to keep up with this Chiefs offense, put up a ton of points. So he could see, similar playing time. He's their main downfield target as well. So he has some upside there. And his rostership will probably be a bit low here. Like I said, he's sort of the forgotten guy in hthis passing attack. So I like his upside on the showdown slate. And then the Chiefs side, got to go with Kadarius Toney. Mecole Hardman's out again this week. So, Toney, he's been running a route just like 25-30% of the time. But, I mean, he has massive, massive upside if he does see an increase in playing time. Plus, they're starting to give him the ball on direct handoffs. He saw 3 carries for 26 yards and a touchdown rushing in their last game. So he just has massive upside. And I remember there was a game this year where I thought he was going to run around 60 to 70% of dropbacks, and I was projecting him for like over 5 receptions. So again, if he does sort of see an increase in usage, which is possible, they're coming off a bye. He's still trying to get integrated in this offense. So I think his playing time can only go up in the playoffs. He just has massive upside in this game.
Yeah, I like Toney as well. He's one of the guys I had written down, and it really comes down to the fact that there's a wide range of outcomes with him, and that's great for a DFS tournament. And one of the things that I took note of is that Jacksonville plays the 6th most zone coverage, and Kadarius Toney is averaging 2.4 yards per route against zone. Now he doesn't have enough usage to qualify in the leaderboard, but if he did, he'd be right there in the top 5 in that metric. And against man coverage, he's under half a yard per route. So he's kind of specializes in kind of running away from guys. If you jam him up with the line or do something like that, he's not going to be as effective. But that's the beauty of this Chiefs offense. He doesn't have to be the number 1 receiver like he was at times with the Giants last year. So I like the way they've been using him, and yeah, ton of upside. And if you kind of look to the prop market as a tell, you and I were both talking before the show about how the market is about 10 yards higher, 8 yards higher than our projection on Toney. So I don't know exactly how they're getting there. I think they're probably not regressing things as much as they should, but nevertheless, NFL, one of the more efficient markets. So I'm not just going to assume that that I'm right just because mine is lower.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would say, that's just another thing kind of working in favor, especially in a tournament setting, because again, there's a wide range of outcomes. Like, you and I, 2 top 5 fantasy rankers, have them about 8 yards lower than the market, but then the market, the most efficient market in the world, betting market in the world, has them at over 30 yards. So either way, I think there's a lot to like about Toney in terms of the variance and the what could happen, as you mentioned, rushing, receiving, the explosive play potential. So a lot to like with him. I'll mention a couple other guys. The first one, not really a dart throw, but just a guy that I really like for value purposes. And not actually too expensive. And that's Evan Ingram. He saw a season high 94% route participation rate last week. And I think this is going to be another advantageous matchup for him going against this Chiefs defense. Just the way they play coverage, I think they can be vulnerable to the tight end position underneath. So I really like Evan Ingram here, and that if he keeps playing, if he keeps seeing this bump and snaps, which I think he will, because it's kind of been a trend now, not just this game, but in the must-win game, he was a little above his season average as well. So it seems like the more important the game is, the more snaps Ingram is getting, and that really bumps him up. He's my tight end 2 on the week. Yep. That's this stiff competition behind Kelce. You're talking about Kittle. You're talking about Goddard against the Giants defense.
Yeah, Schultz,
who just catches nothing but touchdowns. And somehow Evan Ingram has elevated himself to number 2, and that just goes to show how important routes are. And I think both of us have Trevor Lawrence projected around 39 or 40 pass attempts in this game, if I'm not mistaken. So there's there should be a lot of volume.
Yeah, and remember last year we were talking about James Conner when he was like the best running back in football. We were saying like the eyeball test matches that. He just like he was playing at a different level. That's how Evan Ingram has looked the past 5 or 6 games.
Yep.
There's at times he looks like the best player on the field. So the eye test is definitely matching the underlying metrics. So yeah, he's definitely a player that I'm super high on. I have him as my tight end 2 as well. But just a ton of upside in this matchup.
What's crazy?
What?
The Giants are in the final 8, giving up, and they let go of Evan Ingram.
I know.
They let go of Kadarius. Like all the guys were talking up.
Yeah.
It's like the guys. It's like the guys that the Giants let go. We're saying, hey, yeah, you need to roster these explosive guys,
No
and
kidding.
yet somehow the Giants are still here with Isaiah
So
Hodgins. And
yeah,
we'll
so
talk
wait,
about
when is
them.
Isaiah Hodgins gonna end up on like the Chargers or something? Like
Oh man, probably sooner than later. But I just thought I thought that was pretty funny. All right. But yeah, a couple other guys I want to mention for this, because you're gonna have to find the right dart throw here, because you're gonna have to pay up for some combination of
yeah.
Kelsey, Mahomes, probably one of ETN or Kirk or somebody up there. So Trevor Lawrence. So another two more guys I'll mention: Chiefs, Noah Gray, Jaguars, dead last in DVOA against tight ends, and Noah Gray has had a very consistent role in this offense. He's never run fewer than 10 routes in a game, and he's gotten as high as 27 when they go into, heavier pass scripts. They will often play with two tight ends on the field, and, McCole Hardman's still out, so they'll still mix in a good amount of two tight end personnel here, even though, we like Tony. Noah Gray is kind of that sneaky play who he would probably be leverage on Kelsey, because, if you're dead last against tight ends, I mean, you're going to cover Kelsey and not the backup. And, he's going to be leverage on, guys like Tony, Justin Watson, all these receivers. People are going to try to figure out. The answer might just be Noah Gray. So I think he's a guy that you have to have some exposure to. And then on the Jaguar side, it's slim pickings, but I'll go with Jamal Agnew, only because I think of guys that, you probably don't expect to run more than a handful of routes. So a true dart throw, he does have a lot of different things working for him as far as upside. Number one, he's fifth on the team with 6 red zone targets. He's also tied for 4th on the team with 3 targets inside the 10. And he's averaging just over 3 kick returns per game, kickoff, punt combined. So he's going to get 3 extra cracks on average to score a touchdown. And he has a questionable tag coming into the game. So I think that will only lower his rostership when you combine kind of a guy who hasn't really been seeing much usage with a guy who's questionable. I think people tend to stay away. But when Agnew's been on the field, he has been targeted 34% of his routes. He's been targeted. So even though he only plays, sometimes it's like 3-4 snaps a game, he's always gets at least 1 target. So,
yeah.
And he could be good for a rush attempt as well. Let's see, how many does he have? I believe it's 9 in 15 games. Let's see. Oh, no, he's got 12 in 16 games. So, yeah, he's about 3/4 of the time. You also may get a rush attempt at him. So just a lot of different ways. And he's a very explosive player. So, obviously a guy that could easily goose egg, but also a guy that I think, could be a slate breaker if he pops something.
Yeah, so going back to Noah Gray, love that call. I'm projecting for about 45% routes run rate. And he's great leverage against Kelsey, but more of a game theory question. I don't even know if there's a right answer. What would give you like more leverage in a tournament? Playing Noah Gray and not having Kelsey in the lineup, or playing both?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think if you just want to say more leverage, I think it would be playing Gray and not Kelsey, because if Kelsey catches, let's say Kelsey goes 6 for 80, like, kind of his, but he doesn't get a touchdown, and Noah Gray does. It's just, you probably just aren't supposed to have a player that expensive. Like, you're not supposed to have Kelsey. Like the optimal lineup probably just won't have Kelsey if he doesn't score a touchdown. But if Gray scores a touchdown, the optimal lineup is almost guaranteed to have Gray. So, like, yes, it could very well work out that you need both. But if you're just talking what gives you max leverage, it's obviously to fade the guy who everyone's going to have and play the guy that much fewer people are going to have without him. So yeah, I would go one without the other. And of course, as we always say, you always have that added upside if Kelsey gets banged up, even if he doesn't get hurt for the whole game. Let's say he misses a drive or a few plays.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I would go without. But the more lineups you're building, the more you're going to end up combining them. But yeah, if I had just had one, I would probably take my chances. Fade with the Kelsey fade. Okay. Luck rankings. What do we got?
Yeah, so the Jaguars are 10th, Chiefs 3, so it's only a luck ranking differential of 7. And now that we're in the final stages of the playoffs, we're not going to see many luck rankings games, especially with the Vikings out. So this is a pass. And it's really hard to evaluate if the Jags got lucky or unlucky last week, because probably a bit unlucky, going down 24-27 nothing, whatever it was, with Lawrence throwing 4 picks. They had the the punt that bounced off the helmet, and the Chargers had good field position. And then the Jags probably got lucky in the second half by being able to come back and win. So those games are always really bizarre to kind of figure out. But our expected score did have the Chargers winning that game 32-25. So, if anything, the Jaguars might be a little overrated coming into this. But do you see any value on this spread right now either way?
So I kind of go back and forth. So the answer is no. But I'll say my reasoning is, when I look at the Chiefs, I generally do try to fade them in spots like this. They are very poor against the spread in spots where they're favored by more than a field goal. Since November of 2020, they are just 10-24, including postseason, 10-24 against the spread. When favored by more than a field goal in a game that Patrick Mahomes starts, that is 29%. So they have been just not good in these spots. With that being said, one of the games they did cover was against the Jaguars. And you also, for what it's worth, we track sharp action in the Action Network app. If you go to the pro signals, you see the little knife. That's the sharp action. Early in the week, the sharp signal was on the Jaguars. I just checked now, and it has flipped to the Chiefs.
Oh,
so that is interesting.
Interesting
as well. But yeah, I think this line's about right. About a touchdown, just over a one possession game, I think is a fair line in this spot. But of course, your lineup should always tell a story. So if you're building maybe one lineup, maybe you still do want to go contrarian. Maybe you go with somebody like Travis Etienne in the captain spot. And you kind of play it that way. Maybe you even stack them with the Jags D. Because I think the way the Jaguars' path to victory is, keep the ball out of the Chiefs' hands, with the running game, and also get luck into a couple of turnovers. And Mahomes is, there's been some games where he's turned it over in some bad spots too. So I think that is a build that I will explore. ETN, Jaguars D stack,
McKinnon.
McKinnon. I'll probably go two of McKinnon, Kelsey, and Smith-Schuster, something like that. And maybe you even fade Trevor Lawrence. Maybe you say, okay, hey, they're going to kind of shorten the game. He's not going to need as many pass attempts. So maybe you go like a guy like Marvin Jones, get that one, try to capture that one receiving touchdown if there is one, or something like that. Maybe even stack the defense with Agnew and hope that they get a return touchdown and take a drive off. So, but yeah, that's how I would kind of build it, from the Jags perspective. And then obviously from the Chiefs, I think one guy, we haven't mentioned, but Pacheco, it would be a guy that, kind of a wide range of outcomes. If the Chiefs are able to kind of maintain a lead, he's obviously the best bet for a rushing touchdown. And he could see, 15, 20 carries if the Chiefs are in a positive game script. All right, let's flip over to the late game, and the aforementioned Giants going to Philly, 7.5-point dogs. In Philly are the Giants with a total of 48. That has risen from 45 early in the week. The Giants over the second half of the season have been one of the better offenses in the league, even when you adjust for schedule. Damn. So, so this Giant offense is no joke. The defense still not good. The talent is better now with them being healthy, but this Philly team is going to be prepared. They're going to be well rested, and this is the now third time these teams will be facing off. Although the Giants didn't play many of their starters in that finale of the regular season, but with all that being said, who do you like in the captain spot?
I'm going to be a little contrarian here and go with my boy Dallas Goedert. I just think he's an under the radar play in the captain. So I think most people will be on Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, maybe even Devonta Smith, or even Miles Sanders. Like, they have so many options you could consider. But Goddard, he put up okay numbers in week 16 through 18. He missed the previous 5 games with a shoulder injury. So he's a guy that it might not be top of mind using the captain slot. But the Giants really struggle covering tight ends. They rank 31st in DVOA against the position. They've allowed 2 100-yard games to TJ Hawkinson over the past 4 games. I mean, he's sort of in the same tier I would consider as Dallas Goedert. So this is one of those games where Goddard could easily go off, and pretty good leverage to have him in the captain slot on the slate, because I don't think his rostership will be that high, at least in the captain slot. So I like tapping into his ceiling here.
Oh yeah, and Goddard's a guy that he can kind of break out of the formation and line up in the slot as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the Giants have really been struggling. And that's kind of what the Vikings did last week with Hawkinson. It was just, I mean, it was really just a thorough beat down. If you just took, like, if football was just about getting your tight end the football, the Vikings win that game by a landslide last week. Because man, it was ugly for the Giants. So
everyone but Irv Smith, of course.
Yeah, I think he did run 3 routes and got a touchdown.
Yeah,
so
that is true.
pretty, and he dropped a pass. I think he got targeted on 2 out of 3 routes, dropped 1, caught a touchdown on the other.
True.
So, yeah, it's. I mean, at this point, we got to probably look at Jack Stoll or somebody. I mean,
Cousins even wanted to target TJ Hawkinson with the game on the line, 4th and 8, and he threw it, to the boundary, 2 yards down the field. So it just goes to show how willing he was to throw it to his tight end.
Yeah, he's like, Hawkinson can easily get those other 6 yards. Just turn into Alex Smith at the crack of prime time. Oh man. Yeah. So I like that Goddard call. I think that's a good way, like you said, to get some differentiation. I'll go with the chalk, Jalen Hurts. I was like, wow, I'm projecting him for 6.5 points more than Barkley, 8.5 more than Brown. So the value is there for Jalen. I think there's a good chance he spreads it around. Goddard, I think, will get heavily involved, as you mentioned. And I think, Brown and Smith, what did they do last time? They moved him into the slot and took advantage. So you have 3 different guys that you could kind of, I know Quez Watkins starts there, but you have Goddard, you have Brown, you have Smith. All those guys can go into the slot. So I don't think Hurts will kind of have problems throwing the football. And we'll see what the Giants do in terms of their coverage. They actually played a ton of zone against the Vikings. If that continues, I think, Hurts will succeed, will have a success as a passer. But we also know the Giants, their whole identity this year has been man coverage, send the blitz. So if this Eagles O-line it's one of the best in the league. If it holds up, you're going to get rushing lanes if you play man coverage, because the defender's backs will be turned. So high floor, high ceiling play is Jalen Hurts against this Giant D that ranks 29th in DVOA overall, 23rd against the pass, and dead last against the run.
Yeah, and he had the extra week to rest up. I think he's probably closer to 100% over his shoulder injury. So this could be one of those games where we see 15 plus rush attempts from Hurts. It's been a while since we've had that, but he should be 100% this week.
Yeah, I missed the 8.5 on his rush. I was looking at his rush attempt prop, and I think it opened at 8.5, and I missed it. And I'm like 2 rushes higher than you, which is hilarious. I'm at like 10.9. I'm at 10.9. So like if I could have got that 8.5, I would have been living. Like at 9.5, it's a little closer. I still might end up taking it. But
it's 8.5, but you got like, minus 140, minus 150 juice, but honestly, it's probably still worth it.
Yeah. So
because kneel downs, QB sneaks, like all of those add up. So yeah, that's I might have to follow you on that one.
Yeah. So expecting Hurts, and I know the Giants, they did play well against him in the run game in that last matchup. So but that's the whole advantage of locking up that number 1 seed. Yeah. Now you get to rest and you get to take 2 weeks to prepare for your next opponent. So expect Hurts to come out firing. All right. Who do you like? Dart throws, other just value plays. Who else you trying to get in your lineups in this Giants-Eagles game?
Yeah. So, for every Eagles showdown slate, I have to say this guy's name. It's Quez Watkins. You just always have to consider his upside on showdown slate. He's never a guy I'm going to play on, like a main slate. But he's the main downfield threat. He could break this slate with a single catch. Now, his role did seem to change a bit when Goddard was out. He was running a lot more underneath routes. His 8 out was only 8.6 when Goddard was out those 5 games. It's 13.2 when Goddard is out of the lineup. So I think he's going to be more of that boom bust, deep downfield target here. So love Quez Watkins upside. I always do. I think he's come through in the Eagles have been on like 4 showdown slates. I think he's come through in about 2 or 3 of them. So he has a pretty high hit rate on these showdown slates. So always love taking Quez Watkins. On the Giants side, there's a couple options. I think that the obvious one would be Richie James, just because it's a great matchup in the slot. He can avoid the better cornerbacks for the Eagles and Slay and Bradbury. So I think he's going to be, funnel targets here. Plus, Hodgins is playing through a pretty nasty ankle injury. I know he had a good game last week, but at some point, Hodgins might be unable to play at a high level with what seems to be a pretty significant ankle injury.
Just breaking news, he's completely off the injury report, so he actually might be fine. I'm just saying. I don't want.
Yeah, no.
He's like limping around out there. Like I think James is still to play.
Did you see the picture of his ankle? It is not. I
actually did not. Yeah,
it is nasty.
I'm just saying when guys are off the injury report, I'm not gonna tilt myself by like trying to factor that in. But I agree. I think James, just matchup wise, is the play, because you're not gonna have the same kind of separation for Slayton and Hodgins against Slay and Bradbury that you had against Peterson and I don't even know who was on the other side last week, but Duke Shelley, was it? Whoever. So I think James is a great call.
Yeah, but check out that picture. Granted, he's a professional athlete, and I'm sure he'll be totally fine. But there is some hidden upside there if Hodgins is less than 100%. And then Lawrence Cager, I mentioned this with my Daniel Bellinger prop on our other pod, but I was shocked to see him run a route on 30% of Daniel Jones dropbacks last week. So he's a guy, he's a former receiver, so maybe they just wanted to get some more pop in the passing game. He went off for 8 catches, 69 yards in their week 18 game when they rested all the starters. So, they might continue to give him 30% routes run rate here. So while he only caught 1 pass for 4 yards, he could catch 2 or 3 balls with that kind of usage. So just a guy I would sprinkle in GPPs. Again, this is a showdown slate. We're trying to hit home runs on some of these lower roster guys. And I think Cager is worth a flyer just based on his usage last week.
Yeah, and I just looked at the Hodgins picture. Yuck. And that was before the Vikings game. Wow.
So I know. Isn't
props to him.
That makes his performance that much more amazing, right? I mean,
yeah. It's that time of the year, man. Everybody's just messed up.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I like that Cager call. I think that, so the way I'm kind of handicapping this game is the Giants so well coached. Yeah. The Giants have been so good when they play a team for the second time. Think about Washington, think about the Eagles. I mean, with not even their starters in the game, they kept that one, kept the Eagles offense relatively in check and, made the final score look respectable somehow. So I think what's going to happen here is you played them 2 times. You have to, and you're the 2 most consistent passing game weapons for you, Slayton and Hodgins, will probably be compromised by Slay and Bradbury, just the quality of their coverage. So you can't expect to get the same production out of those 2, right? So I think what's going to happen here is you're going to see these other guys, these fringe role player guys, be schemed into advantageous situations. So a guy like Lawrence Cager, who does have some explosiveness, I wouldn't be surprised if you see, like a jet sweep, throwback pass, something just to get him, alone streaking down the sideline. Like I think he had something like that, maybe over the middle opening the Thanksgiving game, but just kind of plays to get different guys that we don't usually see as involved into space, like that are not named Saquon Barkley, that are not named Hodgins, and that are not named Slayton. So I think Cager is going to be a key on this slate. I think Richie James, even though his playing time dipped a little last week, I think he's going to be a key. Matt Breida, the Giants played a number of personnel groupings that had both halfbacks on the field, Barkley and Breida. So I think I think guys like that, I'll even throw in Daniel Bellinger. I know you're on his under on his receiving prop, but another guy with, still should see around, 75, 80% of the routes. Another guy with a wider range of outcomes who we've seen, he schemed up a touchdown in the past. He had a rushing touchdown earlier this year. So I think you have to roster Cager, James, Breda, Bellinger, because those are the guys that are next up that are still going to see at least some time on some significant time on the field. And I guarantee you're going to see one, if not more, multiple kind of schemed up. I don't know if it's going to be straight up trick plays, but some kind of plays designed to get these guys free and kind of count on the defense, paying the most attention to your star players, even though I don't know if I call Slayton and Hodgins stars, but for this Giant team,
they are.
And shouts to Joe Shane and for the roster he's assembled, because I mean, like we said, we're talking about on the other slate, we're talking about guys that the Giants gave up, and we're like, yeah, we want to roster these guys. So I think that's a great call. I think Quez is a great call as well, because remember, he lines up in the slot about 3/4 of the time. Now I do think they'll move other guys in there, so maybe it won't be that high, but Giants really struggling with their slot coverage. Darnay Holmes, allowed 7 of 7 completions for 47 yards last week. He's allowed 17 of 19 to be complete in his coverage over the last 3 games. And then McLeod is allowing a 156 passer rating from the slot on the season. So they don't really have, and if you don't go with those two, now you got to kind of use a safety in there. So I mean, the Giants, that's the one spot where the Giants really don't have a ton of answers. You may see a Dory shadow Brown or Smith into the slot, but then that just opens up Watkins against, maybe one of these corners on the outside, whether it's Moreau, whether it's Holmes, following him outside. But either way, I think Watkins, as you said, you just have to have some exposure to him on a slate like this. All right. What do we got for the luck rankings for this?
Well, it's pretty tight. Giants ranked 4th, Eagles 2nd. Yeah, the Giants, they rank really high in our luck rankings because they're 9-4 in 1-score games this year. But they're a well-coached team under Brian Daboll. So I think we can expect them to continue to overachieve going forward. So they're not necessarily a team I'm looking to fade simply due to the luck rankings. Like I said, heading into the season, that's a big reason why I like their over. I think it was like 6.5 wins. I just think they're a really well-coached team. And then on the Eagles side, same thing. They rank 2nd in luck rankings. I think a lot of that has to do with their +8 turnover differential, 3rd highest, but you'd kind of expect that from a team like this. They're very complete, probably the best overall roster. They're a well-coached team. So they're not a team I would consider overrated. Plus they had some pretty bad injury luck to close this season. They were without Hurts and or Lane Johnson in 2 of their final 3 games. So, having this bye week, they're going to be closer to 100% health. I'd say neither one of these teams is a team I'd be looking to fade just based on the luck rankings. So the fact that they're so close, this is definitely not a luck ranking game.
Yeah, mentioned, Hurts is my top value in the captain spot, but I think obviously, one way to play it would be, going with the Giants upset game script. I'm fine Saquon Barkley in the captain spot. I'm also fine Daniel Jones in the captain spot. I don't necessarily think he gets you. I don't know if he gets you multiple passing touchdowns, but I'm pretty sure he can get you a rushing score, because they showed no hesitation. Like, they were using him as the lead back. Like, Barkley got 9 carries last week? Something like that.
If that, I think it was like 5. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So, Daniel Jones is a guy
9 for 53.
Right. So Daniel Jones is a guy who's going to run the football in this spot. And I think that's kind of the way you want to run on the Eagles. You want to go outside, because now they kind of shored up the inside. Davis came back. Adama Sue's there now. You got Linval Joseph. Like, Davis doesn't even play that much. Like, at the beginning of the year, we were like, oh man, when he's out, their run defense suffers. And now he's like 5th on the depth chart now. Yeah. So but yeah, I would look to the Giants running game, and then, roster one of those others to save some cash, whether it's Richie James or Cager or Bellinger or even Breda, in kind of a QB running back stack, something like that. But that's how I would kind of attack it from the Giants side, if I'm looking for that kind of positive game script for the Giants.
And I think Richie James would be good in that game script as well. You're trying to make higher percentage throws. Either game script, I think Richie James is going to be crucial.
I would actually go Cager as the top one in a positive, because you're more likely to play double tight end and take the slot man off the field when you're up. Like, I still think James has a great matchup, but we did see that a couple of times. We saw that a little bit last week. His routes run dropped to 66%. And then there was another game against Washington where it was like 55. So there's been a couple of games where the Giants have kind of gone to a little heavier personnel. So, I mean, I think Cage and Bellinger, I guess. Bellinger probably actually, I would say, the top one. So like a Barkley, Jones, Bellinger. You hope Jones hits Bellinger for like the only pass touchdown, but then Jones also runs one in and Barkley runs one in, and then you're in business.